Good day. In honor of the Sunday of Orthodoxy and the Church's triumph over the iconoclasts back in the 9th century, and the return of painted images to the church, little windows in the heavens, you could call them. I'm going to post an interview, impromptu interview, with Father Patrick from St. Gregory of Sinai Monastery. We had me behind the veil and let me into their shop, and we looked at icons, how they make them. We looked at a few different things, but it's not the full interview, and it kind of cuts off at the end. Just I ran out of data, but it's a blessing anyway, because Father Patrick's a real treasure. Hope you enjoy it.
Burned to turn black. It used to be ivory black, but that's a no-no now because we're killing the elephants. So you can't get ivory black. And this is some sort of black oxide. Some of the colors are very expensive, like this one. That's ground lazurite. So that's a pretty expensive color. Where the earth colors are dirt cheap. You can get a pound of it
Because they're so available.
$10.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they've made a huge comeback. There's a real movement in the art world for homemade paints.
Mm-hmm.
So because you take these paints and let's see, we got a little water here. This is just regular water. You take a little water and a little pigment, that's red ochre, and you get something that looks like paint. And you can, I just did this demonstration on the border of this icon in progress. You can paint on that, but as soon as it dries, it's going back to being just.
It's powdery.
It's dirt.
Yeah.
It's essentially not like this. That's not coming off. You have to mix something with the pigment that's going to adhere it to what you're painting.
Is that where the egg comes in?
That is where the egg comes in. And in oil paint, that's where the oil comes in. If you take, what do we got here? We got a muller here. You could take those pigments, put a little linseed oil here, and grind them up, and you'd have oil paint.
I see.
The oil holds the pigment. It forms
okay.
the film and holds the pigment. And egg tempera, which is millennia older than oil paint. Oil paint's a recent invention, really. Invented in the early Italian Renaissance, essentially. Mm-hmm. Before that, egg tempera was pretty much the medium par excellence, and that's just pure egg yolk, which has been diluted down with a little water to make it thinner. So now...
So no white in the process?
No what?
No white.
No egg white?
No albumin.
In our recipe, there isn't, but there's a million recipes. And there's some recipes that only use white, but they're used for different purposes. This is the typical egg tempera recipe. So now I got this, and it looks about the same, but the egg yolk is a natural emulsion, which goes on wet.
And it doesn't influence the color so long as it's not white.
No, even white, it doesn't. You would think that there's really not that much yellow pigment in the yolk.
Okay.
So even white, I mix it with, this is titanium white. We used to use lead white, but I decided I didn't want it around. I came and found a cat drinking the paint water because they love that. A little bit of egg, and they like mucky stuff.
They do like eggs as well.
And they like eggs. So now, see, when this dries, its natural emulsive qualities, which are the fats suspended in the network of proteins. If I leave it in the jar, eventually it'll just rot. But when you put it in a thin layer, the air dries it immediately, and it becomes dry. So like this is already, well, this is just as wet as is because it's a kind of a damp day. Regular Lake County weather, that's dry in 2 minutes. And that's what egg tempera is about. We tend to make the image by building up several layers of color, and we paint on top of those dry colors. Like the green background there, that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go with that. But these colors will build up slowly. Like here's an icon I'm just starting. And that's just the drawing of the saint, Saint Parthenius, actually. And this is done with egg. So although my earlier sketch was done with just pigment because I was changing it a lot until I really found the final drawing.
Uh-huh.
He's a fairly modern saint from the 1900s.
Yes.
So here's an icon this is about half done. And so you can see, like, this is St. Gregory Palamas, and this is our patron saint, St. Gregory of Sinai.
I instantly recognize them, actually,
Do
by
ya?
the way you painted that one.
Yeah, well, St. Gregory with his kind of squarish beard is
Yeah.
very typical. And you can see, I've built up that yellow ochre color a couple of layers. You can see my drawing underneath it. The next thing I'll do is, like I'm doing here, I'll put the lines in, and then I'll put some highlights in. And the lines on the halo, you can see underneath the red, I've worked out where the letters are going to be for the names.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's 3/4 done. And actually, when it's done, it won't look substantially different than it does now from a distance.
And do you have a name for that font style, the English font style that you use?
That is the typical calligraphy that we see in Byzantine iconography, and it's very, very, very simple. And everybody, nowadays you've got a great interest in the saints of the West, the old saints of the West, like St. Patrick. Got an icon of St. Patrick, and so British people now they're using British unsicle letters and everything, but I've never seen anything that's really satisfied me. I like the verticality of this Byzantine script. It adds a nice rhythm because you have to identify the saint. That's a requirement for the icon, but it doesn't distract too much. It doesn't pull too much attention to itself. So, but there's no rules on that. And there's an icon a little bit more finished. Also, the two St. Gregories.
That's wonderful.
And that's a little bit more done. Like I still have to do the little details of the face. And this kind of very small work is what egg tempera excels at.
But
see, this is all dry.
Uh-huh.
This is all dry. And then when it's done, I will varnish it because it doesn't need to be varnished. If you like the look, you could leave it that way. But we varnish it for two reasons. If we put a nice oil varnish on it, it permeates all the layers and makes them translucent and rich. It's a beautiful thing. You pour the varnish on and it just, like varnishing a beautiful piece of wood.
Yeah.
And the grain and the colors change and everything. But also an icon's got to be protected because, we were just all walking around. There's nobody walking around with the Mona Lisa today.
Right.
It's on the wall. The happy thing is egg tempera, once it dries for a few years, it's almost indestructible.
Highly tactile.
Yeah, like we've got icons that are over 1,000 years old, and if they're in good condition, they'll look like they were painted yesterday.
Wow.
See, where oil paint can't do that, it keeps drying and cracking and falling
Yeah,
apart.
it
It's
cracks.
very fragile.
Right.
Very fragile medium. I mean, you construct it the right way, it'll last, but not like egg tempera does. So there's a lot of advantages. I mean, again, I use it because I cannot quite make the colors that I can't make colors of that luminosity with acrylic. Although I will say, I was raised on acrylic paints as a kid. I never used oils till I went to art school. The acrylics now are a million times better than they were.
Uh-huh.
So Brother Nathan came here recently, and he had this icon, which he had started up at the seminary, where they have an icon painting class, and they're using acrylics. So to finish his icon, we bought a set of the acrylics they're using. This is his practice panel.
Uh-huh.
Because before he ruins his nice big icon,
Yeah.
we try things out on the practice panel here, and I'm very impressed with these icons. Like I could actually believe that this was egg tempera. They're a lot better than they used to be. The chief difference is the acrylic is a viscous medium. It clings to the brush because it's designed to do that. Even if you thin it down with a lot of water, it's somewhat viscous.
Yeah.
Egg tempera is a water-based medium and it flows from the brush. So it has a reputation of being very exotic and difficult. But actually, once you've learned the basics of it, how much egg for how much pigment, which is very easy, it does all the things you want it to do in a very simple way.
Uh-huh.
It's like a lot. So again, homemade paint. There's a lot. There's quite a few companies now that sell pigments. We've got no lack of beautiful pigments, and lots of terrific options for supplies. So one of the biggest salesmen of pigments and now all kinds of art supplies is a friend of ours who's up in Willits.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's and we test a lot of pigments for him, and he gives us a lot of free stuff to test, and he's a remarkable resource. So he's the one I'm going to talk about, the new varnish. It's the varnish that we use. We use the old Russian style varnish, which I just don't think there's been an improvement on it for egg tempera. This is linseed oil, which has been left in the sun, but also it's got some cobalt acetate in it, which is a dryer.
Okay.
And makes it dry better. And one thing we're starting to use is tongue oil. This is the thing that we're questioning at this point. Tongue oil works a lot faster than the Russian varnish, and it really is remarkable. It really works well. So I'm actually at this point doing both. I do a first layer with this and let it permeate all my colors, but leave the icon kind of dry, and then the next day I do the same process with the tongue oil. It works out really well. So we pour that oil in excess on the surface of the panel. We lay it in the sun, and then throughout the day, it penetrates the paint surface, but it also gets thicker.
Now, is this after the image or before the image?